Okay, so I hope you really have a good time doing this project. Just remember, you're doing two of them. The goal is you take an image and you completely deconstruct it by cutting it up with these selection tools, and then you reconstruct it into some other kind of image. Now, the image can be abstract, it could just be based on patterns, but I should be able to have like some kind of focal point. The tools you'll probably be using the most will be the rectangular marquee tool and the elliptical marquee tool. These two. I know we talked about all these other selection tools. You will be using those for other projects, not so much for this one. We'll also be using all of the keyboard shortcuts and copy and pasting techniques from my earlier videos in this one. So this one I just got started. I don't really know where I'm going with it. Something struck me about the bird and its beak. And so what I did is I made one selection of the bird and I've been copying and pasting, so duplicating that selection and just rotating it over here. So the things you really want to remember for this project, the move tool, you want to make sure auto select is on. That'll save you an awful lot. So let's say I want to tweak this image right here. I don't have to go and try to find the layer it's on. I just click it. And remember some of those keyboard shortcuts. Let's say I want to see what this would look like at a little different rotation. If I do Control T, which is for transform, I can hover into the corner, I got the double arrow, and that's my rotation. All right, and then I could put it in the middle and I could sort of move it out. All right, so with Control T, we can use it to make our image smaller and larger, which I don't really want you to do, but you could, unless you're making it smaller, you could rotate it as well. And to commit to this, I can either double click here or go up to the options bar, check on it to commit to it, or if I don't like what I did, let's say I made it too small and I decided I don't like that, I could cancel it. And it'll just go back to the way it was before. All right, so Control T or Command T if you're on a Mac. So that's a really good one. Also, just using the Control J. So let's say I want to duplicate, get more of these. Control J. You see I now have my layer 1 copy 5. And I can do Control J and that will just give me another copy, and I could do Control T and that allows me to scale it and rotate it and move it out. Okay, so those are two really good keyboard shortcuts. Remember, layer order is also going to be really important, so it's going to decide what's going to be on top of what, so switching things around can really change the order and how images will look, the final result. So once you get, maybe this is one way that you could work, maybe once you get something that looks like an interesting pattern and you want to reproduce it, you could, as I covered in other videos, select a bunch of these. So I'm going to click on the top one, hold the shift key down, click on the bottom one, and I could, if I want, merge them. They are temporarily locked, but if I wanted to just move them, for example, but if I wanted to merge them so they'd just be on one layer, I right click and go to merge layers. And now it's just one layer. Now I don't want you to turn in a project that's just two layers. I want to be able to see lots of them, but now I'm going to duplicate this one, which was what originally like 6 layers, multiple times. Okay, so now I'm just going to, with this layer selected, do Control J, and now I have this duplicated. And now maybe I want to do something like to flip it. So remember under Edit, Transform, I have those options like flip horizontal or flip vertical. I could flip it horizontal, and so now they're kind of mirroring each other. I'm getting this like symmetrical thing. If I wanted to go back and take another selection here, I certainly don't want this all to be based on one selection. I want you to do lots of selections. Just remember to choose the right layer in the layer order, and sorry, in the layer panel you want to work from. So I want to go back to my background, so I need to choose layer 0. It's called layer 0 because I unlocked it, and I could choose that one, and now that's the one I'm going to go and I'm going to start making some selections in my background. So I select it, Control J, and then V for the move tool, and I'm going to move it out. Go back to layer 0, make another selection. I'm going to get it to look a little bit like glitched. Control J, V for the move tool, move it out. And so that's kind of just like one way you could do it for this, for some section, give it a little glitch look. Go back to my background layer, take my rectangular marquee tool, make another selection, Control J to paste it onto its own layer, V, and move that out. Okay, so now I could get this to the bottom part. I could just kind of keep going with that. And if I wanted, I could do the same thing of grouping. a couple of these guys. So I could take layer 2, 3, and 4, right click and merge those. And now that's one layer that I could then duplicate multiple times. And so, you know, I'm looking to see that the layer, that the image is really glitched up, but I'm just trying to show you that there are ways that you could do this where you could get lots of different layers, but yet your layer panel doesn't have to show 100. Maybe it's just going to show like 20, something like that would be cool. Okay, I'll do one more copy of this, Control J, duplicate it, and yeah, so maybe I'd start like putting them behind over here. If you wanted to add some kind of painting to these layers, you certainly could do that like we did in our first project. You could create a new layer, and I could go to my layers panel. Sorry, I'm going to take my paintbrush. I have it on this cyan color, and if I wanted to paint over it, this section here, if I wanted that to have that kind of cyan color, and then I could play with my layer opacity if I want to give that a little bit of tint. Now I do have to get my entire background filled, so I have a lot of work here. I have to keep going. I don't want to see any of this white stuff. But so you could work with the painting. Also, if you wanted to go back to any of the adjustments, you could do that. So we talked a little bit about this for the black and white, like under image, adjustments. If you wanted to add some kind of effect, like under photo filter, or you wanted some of these to be black and white, you wanted to try the color balance just to see like what does that do. I could make this one itself very cyan, or switching the colors. You can add any of those effects if you want to as well. Okay, so I think that, you know, this is really kind of the idea of what I'm looking for. You take an image, you start slicing it up, you see if you can find some patterns, you see if you can recreate it into some sort of pattern where at least there's like a focal point, or maybe it's focused on just creating symmetry, something like that. Remember, under Edit, besides Transform, which is Control T, and getting to rotate, but you also could go under Flip horizontal or vertical. And remember your move tool, having that. And with auto select, remember to choose the right layers. You can do a little bit of merging. And I think that's really it. Have fun with this project. Just slice it up. I don't want to be able to see any of the original, with the exception of, I do expect your original layer to still be there. So when I look at yours, I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn off all your layers, and I'm expecting to see the original layer untouched. So this is still non-destructive in theory, non-destructive editing, because your original layer will be right there at its original form, and then it'll be kind of interesting for me because then I can see what was the original source for what will hopefully be a totally new looking image. All right, have fun.